Our second speaker co-founded Euro VAT Refund, Euro VAT Value Added Tax, Inc. in 1992, and has been the company's president and CEO since its inception. Euro VAT Refund, Inc. is a leading U.S. financial services company specializing in assisting North American companies with value-added tax, VAT management, registration and refunds for international businesses. She's one of the most knowledgeable VAT experts in the United States today. She informs tax managers in small to medium-sized companies, as well as Fortune 500 companies, the United States Departments of Commerce, Revenue Canada, European embassies, consulates, and trade offices in the US. In addition, she frequently provides VAT info for articles in newspapers and trade magazines like Consumer Reports, The Wall Street Journal, The World Academy, and other trade publications. Euro VAT Refund has over 400 clients, of which are several Fortune 500 companies, major entertainment companies, movie production companies, event planning, and many other small to medium-sized companies. Please help me to welcome Britta Eriksson.
And thank you for having us here today. It's our pleasure. Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the other side, and that is the American company going abroad, doing international business. And I am sure that many of you will work with this part, so I want to give you some advice based upon our experience with working with this every day. So Eurovat Refund, we are located in Culver City, down the street, and we assist North American and Canadian companies with value-added tax. That is an implemented tax in the whole world except the United States, and it will greatly affect you if you do any international business, no matter what it is. So that means that we help them to reclaim this VAT and also provide consulting how they have to go about it when they trade internationally. So we have many clients, and some of them are very well known, like for example these companies up here, such as IKEA, Facebook, Sony, Princeton University, for example. But many of our clients are also medium to small size, and we also now have a lot of what we call the micro companies that are basically e-commerce startup companies that start from day one to trade internationally. And that has become a really important group, and with particular issues when they trade internationally. Value-added tax then is one of the implications when you trade internationally. And let me mention that, as we said today, where you become global from day one, but it's a very big difference, is that the world is not set up to accommodate this day one trade. It is not. The local laws and regulations do not accommodate the really small company, startup company that goes international from day one. So it is a really, really tough challenge. As Göran mentioned too, it used to be that when you started a business, you sold locally, which meant the globe was around. You sold in LA, Culver City, you went California, US, and then you started to sell internationally. So by then, when you started to sell internationally, you already have in place usually a tax department, maybe an international tax advisor, and you were set up to do this research that you have to do with a professional in-house or as-house staff. That is not the case today. You start immediately with a global market, and you have to learn these things on yourself. And it is very costly and complicated, but if you don't do it, you will run into really big problems. So you really need to be aware of that. I think when you go out and find a job now, you might start your own company, or you might start to work for a startup company, or you might start to work for a bigger company that is very established. That makes a very, very big difference in terms of how they trade internationally and what you have to think about. So in our particular area, for example, value-added tax, that is an implemented tax in almost the whole world except United States and Jamaica and a few other countries. If you want to sell to another country than Jamaica, you need to know about this tax in addition to a lot of other things you have to do. This tax can be called different things, and it can be 10 to 27%. And if you don't know about it ahead of time, as a sample of something you need to know, it can become a cost to your company that you can't get back. And also, if you don't comply, you will also break the laws in that country, which also creates a big problem for you later on. So that is just an example for what you have to keep in mind and think about that. Again, the world is not adjusted to accommodate international trade for day one, so that is a big challenge for you to meet. So again, for example, this value-added tax, just as an example, that becomes an issue for the company that does e-commerce and have to store in Europe. And very typical that is the US company who sells on Amazon, for example. So you sell on Amazon US, they invite you to sell on Amazon Europe, which is a great opportunity for you, but it means you have to ship in products to the United Kingdom, for example, and store it there and sell it on. That means a lot of things for you in terms of how you state your prices on the Amazon, you have to register for this VAT in another country, you have liabilities, and how do you do that so you don't end up with a lot of VAT as your cost. Also, if you sell something online today where people can download from you, so you open up your company, you sell something that any firm in the world can download software from you, streaming service or something like that, that can also create problems. If you sell, for example, to a private person in the United Kingdom. You know, who would know that? You open up, you have companies just download your products from you, who would think that that can become an issue? It is. So therefore, in particular for the small companies, this is something that you have to keep in mind when you start and be very humble about and learn. Do not start to trade before you really learn how this works. So again, as we have now said repeatedly, the whole world can become the market today. So that, of course, requires the international expertise from day one. So that is then the issue when you do work for a big firm, they have this in place, so you can trust that you get this expertise. But if you are hired by a startup company, for example, and they said, oh great, you are a business person major from West LA College, that's wonderful, I'm going to put you in charge of the international sales. That is really, really a great opportunity for you. But this is where you have to also realize that, you know what, you really don't know how this is done, so how do you learn, how do you go about it? And the company you work for might not have the resources. So that you kind of have to also be fair to yourself so you don't put yourself in trouble. Don't pretend that you know this because the company hired you expect you to know, because it might require a big, big expertise. And also I want to say that don't Google everything. You know, I know your generation, you Google everything. We have our own sons who Google everything. And that is great. I really admire them for being so good in Google things. But at Eurobat, for example, we are contacted daily by companies who have these young people who Google everything. So they, for example, have started to sell on Amazon in UK, on the e-commerce site, and they were informed that they have to register for VAT in the United Kingdom, and they Google how to do that. They were able to register for VAT online on the UK tax authorities. You can do that too if you Google. It's really cool, nice. But then they do that and they have no idea that that means that they now are registered for a tax in the United Kingdom. That is like we registered for tax in the US. You now have to file tax returns, you have a legal liability and so on and so forth. They also have no idea that it means that when I state my prices now on the Amazon website in Europe, if I want to get paid $100 for my product, I have to state 120. Because that's what the customer is going to pay Amazon. Amazon are going to send me $100. I got 120 has to go to the tax authorities. They don't understand anything. So they call us because the UK tax authorities have written to them and said, you register for that, where is your tax? And they have absolutely no clue what that means. So that happens again and again and again. And so therefore we know that, for example, just in our area, try to Google value-added tax. It's like try to Google the IRS laws in the US and figure out how they work. So that's just a sample where you have to kind of know your limits there for Googling. Because there are areas where you have to put in professional advice. And that is costly, and I know that if you are hired by a startup company, they might not want to spend the resources there to do that. They expect you to be the expert and Google things. And just be really, really careful with that and understand what it means. And for example, you also, if you work with a smaller company that don't have the resources, you can take advantage of many free resources that are available to you to a certain point. For example, if you work in the LA area, there's a lot of trade, international trade things going on in the city all the time where you can go for free or for a very low fee. For example, the different, China is here, Japan, Europe is here to talk about trade. You can go to the Department of Commerce, they have many seminars going on. The Los Angeles Department of Commerce, for example, has it too. So there are a lot of free available, but also to a certain point, so do keep that in mind. If you work for a bigger company, they will know this, but if you work for a smaller, that can happen. Next. So then, as Jörn also mentioned on, the culture is very important to know. And one thing of that is, do I need to know another language if I trade international? I think it is funny, when you come from a small country like we did from Sweden, we grew up there, it's only 9 million people. It's like one-third of LA. And we know that if we even have to go to Denmark, that would be like if we have to go to San Diego, we would have to learn to speak English. So everybody who grows up in a country like that, they get educated in another language, in our case English first. And it's just part of the nature, and you know you do that because otherwise you can't do anything, right? So there it is, it's as common as learning math and English, you also learn another language. It's absolutely no big deal, it doesn't make you any smarter or anything, it's just what you learn, like reading and you do math. So for example, if you tell a Swedish kid like, wow, that's amazing, you know English, wow, you must be so smart, it's like, that's like telling somebody in the US, wow, you can read, that is amazing, you must be so smart. That's how natural it is for a kid in a country like that to grow up. So that of course is an advantage, you know English, so it's a little bit easier for you than to trade. But I have to say that coming to US, first of all, it was very flattering because everybody thinks I'm so smart because I know 2 languages, so that was really cool. Nobody thought I was smart in Sweden for that reason at all, but now I was smart, so that's really cool. My kids are bilingual, and all of a sudden here, they also think my kids are very smart because I know 2 languages, so that's also very cool, even though in Sweden that was not the case at all. But I think it's not only about learning languages, and you have to know that you have a tremendous advantage of being so good at English as you are. It is an unbelievable advantage when you trade international, so keep that in mind. Because I'm on calls, seminars, all our staff is every day with several different countries. We can be people from Italy, UK, Germany, United States, for example, on calls every day. We always speak English, always. If the Italian guy speaks to the French guy, they always speak English. So it is a very, very language that is dominating in the business world, in the world. I would think in South America, it's more Spanish, but in the rest of the world, it is English. And you have a great advantage, because when you are in these international meetings, just because you are so good in your language, it means you can lead the discussion, even if the people on the call are kind of in a higher position from you. It's a great advantage you have. So I would say to Americans who really think it's sad that you don't know other languages, I agree it is, but it's very natural because you don't really need it so much. But in terms of your language, see it as an opportunity instead. Take advantage of your English and make sure you see how much power you have, because you can lead discussions. So that is a good thing for you to know. But that is another thing than cultures. And culture, you kind of have to be very humble about when you deal with these other countries. So you have to understand how that works. One example I want to give you is when you write, for example, business letters. So how we do it in the United States, we are pretty much direct. We write, for example, to a potential customer, we can end our letter with, I am looking forward to do business with you. Like it's a done deal, right? You cannot write that in Europe, for example. That would be too, like, you know, we're not in business yet. You cannot write that. So instead there you have to be very humble and you write, I look forward to the opportunity of perhaps discussing a little bit more how we can maybe cooperate better in the future, kind of thing, right? So that is things like that has not so much to do with language, it's more about the culture thing, how it is. So that is a very good thing to kind of learn how they work. We have another example that in US, our clients, they expect us to get back to them no matter what. So for example, if we have an issue that we're trying to solve for them in France, we have to tell them, I expect this to take a week to get an answer. Then I might not get the answer from France like in 2 weeks. And in France, that's like, you know, that's okay, right? But in US, it's not. So then I have to go back to my client after a week and say, I don't have the answer yet, but I will get to you another week. And that's okay with them, they know, but I have to get back to them. That might not be the case in another country, right? So there are a lot of those things that you have to be open to. That's how it works when you trade internationally. So for example, if you sell something on a website, for example, that you gather towards private people, then you have to understand, if you really want to go global from the start, you have to be really clear on your website in US, writing to the whole world, these prices are to US. If you order from any other country, we will add custom, duty, tax or something like that. So it's very, very, very clear from the start where that is. Because for example, when a private person in Europe shops anything, they expect to have the final price in the hand. Here, when we go shopping, for example, at Macy's, we always know that I buy something, I come to the cashier, they will add tax. That's not the case there. So there's a lot of cultural things that you really, really should be open and humble about. But do keep in mind that your English speaking is a great advantage to you, I think, for the most part. So next. And then, as I said, international laws. Again, I want to emphasize the world is not set up for today's e-commerce. It is not, but you, damn it, you have to deal with it. So don't do like many companies do. Google things, start to trade, and then when you run into trouble, it is really a problem. And then these experts become really expensive because now they don't only have to tell you how it really should work, they also have to try to go back and clean up your mess that you already had. And you can have major liability in this country because you are trading there when you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't set it up like you did. So you will lose money, you are also breaking the law, and that's not a good thing. So please do really take these laws very, very seriously from day one, also if you work for a very small country. And hopefully the countries can become more friendly, I think, to small businesses now, trading from day one. But we're not quite there yet, but we're working on it. So therefore, do your homework before you start to trade. And that's kind of the small advice I want to give you going forward, and I wish you all the best of luck in your future business. And for sure, I'm just down the street like Jörn is, so feel free to contact us anytime for any thoughts and advice and so forth. And I want to open up for questions. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gus, I teach here. I just have a question. Can you give us an example? I figure that Euro VAT refund, that some of the value that you deliver to your clients is refunding the VAT taxes, right?
Yeah.
So can you give an example of how that process works with your company?
Yeah, I can give you two examples. One is the new company, so value-added tax, for example. One very big difference from a sale tax in US is that if a company in US ends up having to pay a sale tax, which they have to do if they use a product, the VAT should never, ever, 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 ever be cost to company. Never, ever, ever. It works totally different. You usually have to pay it out and then you can pay back. So for example, the benefit for that from US is that if you start to, for example, want to sell into Europe and you want to trade there, you want to go and visit Europe, so you pay for hotels and you pay for trade shows and so forth, they will charge that 20% VAT to you and everyone. And that is refundable to you often. So you can claim, you have to pay it and then you can claim it back from the tax authorities through a procedure. So that is what we help them to do. But I can give you another example, like Princeton University, one of our clients, is right now putting on an alumni event in United Kingdom. And they have a lot of people, you know, thousands coming there. And by helping Princeton now up front, how they should do this and have them register for VAT in a certain way, it makes them save almost $1 million on this event for Princeton University. So that is just because they did contact us up front before they put this meeting on. We did inform them how to do it, we did help them with all the filings and so forth, and that benefit for them is that they will save about $1 million. So even Princeton are happy for that, even though they do have quite a lot of money, I believe. Any other questions? Huh? Okay. Yeah.
Sophia again.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like VAT adds politically? So when a company sets up VAT, how does that change when they're trading internationally, how they receive international trade?
You know, it's just a different system. I think, for example, it doesn't add any cost at all. It's a tax, like a sales tax is. And if you have a country that has a 10% sales tax or VAT, the end result in terms of taxes is really much the same. But the benefit for the tax authorities with the VAT system is that they get the money a lot quicker. So that's the whole point for them. But they really get the same amount of money. Because how it works in US with the sales tax is that, for example, if I buy a pair of shoes at Nordstrom's, right? Then before there was no tax paid into the US government until I come in and buy them. So when the leather maker sold to the shoe manufacturer, there was no sale tax. And when the sale tax sold to Nordstrom, no sale tax. Only when Nordstrom sells it to me, they collect sale tax. So the US government don't get their 10% until I come in and buy. The VAT is collected along the way, so the tax authorities will still get 10%, but they will get it quicker a little bit along the way. So for the tax authorities, it's a good way to collect money that way. It's very hard to implement in the US. I think they talk about it a lot every year, and all new governments do it, and we are a source for them. So we work with the Department of Commerce. They usually contact us and ask. It's just hard to implement here, I think, because here we have all the states collecting sales tax, and some of them do not. So it would be very hard to implement for that reason in the United States, I think, for practical reason. But otherwise, for the tax, it's not that you get a higher tax in. It depends on how high you set it. But it's a quick way for the government to get them in, I think. So otherwise, tax is a tax. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Question. Let's see. What has been your most difficult market to enter, excluding North Korea, and what was the strategy?
No, you know, we work mostly with. That's a good question, actually. We work mostly with Europe and also Australia and Japan. The reason is only that it is in those countries that you can deal with a VAT only without having a company there, so that's the reason. But out of those, we usually very, very funny say, but it's very serious too, that when it comes to Europe, it's good to do business in Western Europe, vacation in Southern Europe, and stay out of Eastern Europe altogether. It's a very good rule that also applied to VAT. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
I was wondering, how many people do you have in your team, and are you based only here in the U.S.?
Yeah, we are based in Culver City, so we have 10 people on our team here, but we also are connected into accounting firm and law firms in every European country. So therefore it's about, I would say, 100 altogether that works on it, because we do need to have local expertise when it comes to the complications. Okay, anything else? No? So then I would say thank you and best of luck with your careers.